Welcome to the Writer Studio Faculty Reading. I am Francesca Moroni. I am a teacher here at the school. We have your colleagues here tonight to listen to their work. We have Linda Drack, Betsy Mahaffey, Hani Khalil, Amy Arut, Doug Crowell, and Gail Ford. For those of you who are not familiar with the school, we are a creative writing school founded by our very own Pulitzer Prize winner, Philip Schultz. We offer both in-person and virtual instruction in the Writer Studio method of writing with a persona. We use our persona writing to unveil our emotional truths that we want to convey as writers. And so as such, we write exercises using this method, and we aim for emotional resonance in the material. We can be found at www.writerstudio.com, where you can look at our upcoming classes, our workshops. You can read more about our method. You can read more about the teachers, the faculty and staff. We have branches in New York City, in the Hudson Valley area, in Tucson, and in San Francisco, as well as in Italy, and a robust online presence as well. We've got a full crowd joining us today. Welcome. Our chat is open and available for all to use. So if you would like to leave your virtual applause for our readers that way, they will very much appreciate that. Sometimes the chat can slow or stall. If that happens, I'll do my best to get us back on track as quickly as possible. And with that, we're going to go ahead and get started. The first reader we will hear from today is Linda Drack. Linda is a poet, a writer, a public health policy analyst, and a volunteer writing group facilitator for the nonprofit Write Around Portland. Her poetry has been published in Bellingham Review, Hijibi, Calyx, Crab Creek Review, and elsewhere. She lives in Oregon, where a walk in the neighborhood might include a cardamom latte or an encounter with a mountain lion. Linda, if you could go ahead and unmute and take it away.
Thank you, Francesca. And thanks to everybody who's here for sharing part of your Sunday with us. I really love being part of this community, and I'm glad you're here. So I'm going to read a few poems today, all of which started out as Writer Studio exercises. The first poem is called Homecoming, and it was just published in Kijibi. Homecoming. On Saturday, my mother takes me to cute shops selling soap, scented candles, and pink aprons with slogans that tell me to get sloshed. It's wine o'clock. Dinner is poured. Drink happy thoughts. This town is full of offers for a prodigal daughter, 22 days sober. Like a drive-through beer vault, Margarita Mondays, $2 shots at the Come Back Inn. At the side of the road, a dead fawn nearly disappears under a cloud of black flies, and the brood X cicadas, who make a quick visit every 17 years, even less often than me, pile onto lawns and tree branches, car hoods and rooftops, creating a wall of humming like collective tinnitus, although singly, they sound like B-movie UFOs. I am happy to see my family, but I know I'm a disappointment. I am not as fun as they remember. This afternoon, for example, all I want to do is watch wild turkeys poke through dappled shade in the woods behind my mother's condo. 8 bottles of red wine and 14 bottles of booze crouch on the bottom shelf of her pantry by the Cheez-Its, waiting for dinner to be poured. But I'm okay. There's something underneath the buzzing discomfort. It's faint, but I hear it. My invitation to emerge. This next poem was published in February in the Bellingham Review. And it is called Elegy for B, who dropped dead after dinner. Only you would exit that way, your cashmere sweater draped on a chair, a lemon you nicked in your pocket. Only you could say, when you don't spend money on yourself, people notice, and leave me believing it was sage advice. Only you served up the perfect cappuccino at Marco's, at Beesaw's, and in your rented purple kitchen as we fed each other hard little biscuits of truth. You didn't let your past trap you. Not the meth, not bad boyfriends, not your brother in the basement. It was you who showed me how to use shame as fuel, how to burn it to reach the next place. A true Kinsey Six in pearls and pink button-down dress shirt, potbelly, and porn mustache. Somehow, still Catholic. You were the only one who knew where I went that time he betrayed me. You said, he'll never put you first. And you were right, but you didn't judge me when I went back. Those crossroads are gone, and the city we loved is gone too. The junk stores, the dive bars, the late night diners serving up flapjacks. I've aged without you, not as well as you predicted. Would you know where to find me? Would you know me if you did? I'm still here, B, in the kitchen. My beat to hell ice maker hissing, while hors d'oeuvres cool on a wire rack. So good we would gobble some hot standing over the sink. I'm still savoring all I can. Don't worry, I'm claiming my place in life's pageant. This next poem is called Practice. The worst part is the dread. For decades, he was too busy to think about it, too distracted to feel it. Death was an abstraction, and then one day it wasn't. Was it the broken hip? Which test result? A forgotten name? He can't remember what caused him to first admit his fragility, but suddenly he could see he was a baby bird fallen from a nest, a chickadee, no bigger than a thumb, eyes closed, naked, except for downy gray patches, useless against the weather. Once he read in a men's magazine that a person could wake up one day and discover he'd forgotten how to jump. Experts recommended daily practice, the upward explosion, the feeling of your own 2 feet leaving the earth. He never did it, and now it's true. He can't jump. He's stuck in this chair, death crouching nearby. He tries to practice what it feels like to be something on its way to becoming something else. Like the carcass of a toad, worms threaded through its belly like shoelaces. Each day, he visualizes melting away. He's gotten pretty good at it. The most important thing about jumping, he'd read, was knowing how to land. Tomorrow, he will practice what it feels like to be nothing, like an open window the breeze blows through. And this last poem is called 3 Days on Cloud Mountain. Before sunrise, we arrange ourselves, cross-legged on floor cushions, or perched on wooden stools, our legs bent back and tucked under. We are here to practice simple things, sitting, breathing, and later, walking. Rain thrums the roof and drips off the gutters. Closer, the soft susurrus of breath lulls us like a tranquil ocean. In and out, on and on, until the brass singing bowl hums 1, 2, 3. And we slowly transition onto mossy paths tossed with yellow leaves. We walk single file, black umbrellas held high. We walk towards nothing. We walk to feel stones beneath the soles of our feet, to feel the gentle wobble of proprioception. Back home, illness stalks my husband, the way the cougar that owns these woods may be tracking us now. As we practice silent attention, becoming better company to what we fear. Tomorrow, when I return to ticking clocks and heartbreak and my sticky attachment to the way things used to be, will I remember how to watch my thoughts release and drop like these maple leaves that fall in graceful, desultory spirals? I hope I can remember it's my choice. I could be anything. An open umbrella, a leaf, letting go. And now it is my pleasure to introduce Doug Kroll. Doug writes poetry, fiction, and nonfiction, and he is the author of Kindness and Salt, which was published by Grand Central in 2018. He lives in Brooklyn, New York. Doug, please unmute.
Thank you, Linda. Thank you, Francesca. And thank you, Phil. It's an honor to be reading for all of you. I have 3 poems, a short one, a long one, and a short one. And the first one is called How You'll Lose Her. Some psychotic at the playground, ammonia mixed with bleach, at the beach, crossing Flatbush, a FedEx truck, in a blackout drunk, in the divorce, having said the thing you can't unsay. In a dream, she's on the subway, and you're on one going the other way. Starved of air and a discarded fridge, she jumps off the Williamsburg Bridge, or drowns in the quarry like an Alice Munro story, or the one where she joins the cult that lives on the river. The cancer spreads to her lungs and liver. The killer in a dented can, an incel, some man. After the assault, she is a shadow of her former self, an odorless gas. While you sleep, she slips out the door. Thank you. This next is a prose poem that came out of our work with Sean Thomas Doherty. Prose poem, so don't visualize line breaks. It's called What I Can't Remember. You make plans to visit a friend in LA, and I ask over and over when you're leaving. I forget, and while you're away, I call you to ask what flight you're on, pretending to remember which day. The simple truth is, I don't want you gone. I'll tattoo this poem on my skin like the guy in that movie Memento. Memory is treachery, it said on his leg. In the first month of COVID, the hospital overflowed onto DeKalb Avenue. We could see it from our window, bodies double parked in refrigerated trucks, the quiet part out loud. And you on the couch, lethargic and gasping. The internet called it air hunger, but air is not food. I can't breathe is what you say and then die, like Eric Garner in Staten Island, choked to death by a cop. That cop didn't listen, and your doctor didn't listen. From his Hollywood square on your laptop, he asked about your history of anxiety. This is how women die, you said. Hysteria, from the Latin for uterus, crazy from the womb. Lose your keys, lose your temper, lose the light. Each loss on a continuum between shit luck and someone's fault. Tattoo that on my leg. 25 years ago, huddled in bed the day after we met, I could not remember your name. What tipped you off? You accused me and laughed as I panicked, preposterously naked, and I stammered all the things I could recall. That you'd gone to McGill, loved soup dumplings, loved Elmore Leonard. In fact, you loved me even then, even the night before, through drunken sex, which was a mess, but already such affection, the way you pet my back, how closely I held you. But not your name. If you had stormed out, what then? My whole life searching Szechuan restaurants for your messy dark hair. For 2 weeks, you lay on the couch trying to breathe while I wrote a story and threw it out, grew scallions in a jelly jar, learned to make tortillas. The bodies in the trucks had had fevers. You did not. Then you did. The hospitals were not safe. I said we should wait. William Trevor writes of grass widows and sod widows. One spouse lies under the earth, the other is widowed by shame. 2 fates in this life, but I cannot conceive of eternity without regret. In metaphor, it is always gnawing. Those slow, dragging teeth never finish. The throat never swallows. I did not learn this the hard way. You got better. You are here. I pick you up from the airport and fall on you like a dog. Uber drivers honking while I huff the smell of your head, your neck, chemical and stale from the plane. I drive home carefully. The BQE is crazy at night. You like it when I carry your suitcase. Ask me anytime when I'm thinking, and it's probably Pompeii. Those poor schmucks when Vesuvius blew, frozen in the pose of a Hail Mary pass. Which one is you? Which one is me? From the shape of our fossils, what might be inferred? On our couch, your feet in my lap, the cat curled between us. An archaeologist's paper would explain us away. The end came too fast, it would say. There wasn't a thing in the world they could do. Thank you. All right. This last poem came out of our work with Asip Mandelstam. It's called Lush Life. I was alive in the storm of woodwinds, at night in the city between plagues. It was all blues and love song, whiskey-toned disbelief, and it was all too fine. What is this heedless tune careening into dawn? How many measures, how many bars? Will it end on a vamp, a cha-cha-cha, and many more? Midnight ballads soothe and sway, an alto keens in time, time kept, time bent, sweetly sharing deadly breath in some small dive to rot, to rest. Thank you. All right, next up, Amy Errett lives on Long Island and writes short fiction, poetry, and creative nonfiction. Her most recent story, Cape Cod Holiday, appears in the November 2022 issue of Voices de la Luna. She's working on a memoir about raising complicated children. She was a reporter for the Fort Worth Star-Telegram before a career in corporate public relations and has a degree in journalism from Northwestern University. Thank you. Take it away, Amy.
Thank you. I'm still writing memoir, but I've put my children aside. And I think I'm, after a number of years of working at it, getting to the meat of the story, which is me writing about me in my own life. Sometimes you have to write a whole lot before you find out what you're really going to be writing about. So the piece I'm going to write for you is one of the many, many stories that go into writing a memoir. And for everyone's sake here, I've called it The Dentist. On a chilly gray Saturday that lurked between the cold white snows of winter and the warm, soft air of spring, my father took me to an orthodontist appointment. The dentist was my father's friend from the photography class they took with the Neighborhood Arts Council. Dr. Brent had been installing hardware in my mouth for the last year. The shaping and bending of silver bands to my teeth was uncomfortable. Once my teeth were ringed with silver, he inserted a new wire into the front tracks on each of the silver bands. With a plier, he twisted the wires to exert pressure. I knew that for a week after the appointment, my teeth would hurt. I knew that eating would not be worth the pain until the teeth moved in my jaws. I knew that several weeks or a month later, I would be back in the dentist chair and my teeth would ache in my jaws again. Nonetheless, I was cooperative. I was, above all, a good girl. My parents promised that the braces would give me straight and beautiful teeth. Eventually, I would no longer have the buck teeth that had resulted from years of sucking my thumb at night. I was 10 years old, and most of my classmates had braces, so braces seemed a normal part of childhood. I went along with this teeth straightening. It never occurred to me that I could refuse. That morning, my father and I sat on the green vinyl-backed chairs that lined the waiting room. Other children, most accompanied by a parent, also waited for the orthodontist. A nurse called my name, and I followed her into a room set up with dental equipment. I climbed into the large patient chair. Dr. Brent, slender and dark-haired in his blue dentist coat, lowered the chair's back so he could see into my mouth. He said he wanted to put a band on a tooth in the back. Putting silver bands on teeth was routine, and I was resigned to some discomfort. I stared at the clock on the far wall, wondering how long it would be until Daddy and I could go home. I opened my mouth wide. Dr. Brent bent forward, leaning in towards my head, holding a small, thin strip of stainless steel and a pointy nose plier. He slipped the shiny silver steel between the two last teeth on the bottom right. He then removed the steel strip, bent it with the plier, before trying to fit it around my tooth. Unlike my other teeth, the gums in the back of my mouth grew up and over half of this back tooth. Dr. Brent pushed down on his band, cutting into my gums. I shrieked, "Stop! That hurts!" He stood up straight, metal band and pliers in his hands. I took a sip of water from a paper cup and spit saliva and blood into the small round ceramic bowl, with water swirling ever downward. "Can you do that differently?" I asked. He was an adult. I trusted him. He squeezed the metal with the pliers, then asked me to open my mouth. I complied. Again, he pushed the sharp steel band into my gums. I could have wriggled free from him and his pliers and run to my father, but I didn't think of it. I was supposed to cooperate. "Stop, please," I said. "I have to get that band in," he said. On the third try, he once again was slicing my mouth with sharp steel. The pain was unbearable. He had no intention of stopping. I was in agony and suddenly furious. "When I ask you to bite, please bite," he said, still jamming metal into soft flesh. "I will," I thought. "Now bite." I bit. As fast and as hard as I could, I bit into his right index finger, and no, I did not let up. It was his turn to feel agony. "Ouch!" he shrieked. He pulled his hand out of my mouth with a reflexive motion, his face deep red in fury. He flew out of the treatment room, across the hall into the patient waiting room, calling for my father. "Sam, come in here right now. Do you know what your daughter did?" In a minute, Dr. Brent, my father, and I were standing in the hall between the waiting room and patient treatment rooms. "Do you know what your daughter did?" he repeated. "She, me." "Did you bite him?" my father asked. "Yes, I bit him." "Why did you bite him?" "Because he was trying to get a piece of metal around my tooth, and he kept on pushing it into my gums, and it really hurt. I asked him to stop 3 times. He wouldn't stop. So when he told me to bite, I bit. Oh, am I going to be in trouble? I thought. Instead, my father looked at me calmly and said, "Amy, it's time for us to go." To Dr. Brent, he said, "We're done here." The two of us walked silently out the door. I most definitely was not in trouble. But even as my father and I walked out of the building and into the parking lot, I waited for a talk, or perhaps a talking to, or at least some discussion of what had happened in the dentist's office. Very uncharacteristically, my father said nothing. No suggestion that I owed the dentist an apology. No discussion of the dentist's violence. No discussion of my reprisal. My father did, however, promise that I would never, ever have to go back to Dr. Brent, an enormous relief. I suspect I unwittingly acted much as my father might have as a child in a similar situation. He grew up poor in rough neighborhoods in New Haven, Manhattan, and the Bronx, where he could be challenged by kids in the streets, or at home by his brothers and sisters, or worse, by his very tough father. He was a very firm believer in not letting anyone take advantage of him. He said nothing to me about biting the dentist, and thus I internalized the lesson. If someone is hurting you, you can and should fight back. It's okay to take care of yourself. Or, in New Yorkese, don't take no crap off of nobody. I have that deep in my bones. I don't know whether it's a genetic or something I learned, or both. Thank you very much. I would like to introduce our next wonderful reader, Betsy Mahaffey. Betsy is the Assistant Director of the Writers Studio in Tucson and teaches the Tucson Workshop. She holds an MA in Classics from the University of Arizona and attended the Clarion Science Fiction and Fantasy Writers Workshop. She is a writer in the Tucson Master Class. She is primarily a fiction writer, but is well-versed in poetry.
Thank you, Amy. All right. Well, I'm going to read the opening to a short story. This is a satirical work based loosely on my experience with the dot-com right before the crash. Okay. A little nervous, but here we go. All right. Where's the golden boy? Asked Jerry, our CTO. The meeting is in less than an hour. Relax, Jerry, he'll be here. Gabe hadn't yet responded to the reminder I'd sent on ICQ earlier, but that was pretty typical. Relax, said Jerry. I've been awake for 3 days straight getting the demo ready for the VCs. I'm pissing straight Red Bull at this point. Look, we're all exhausted. Andrew, the project manager, chimed in. We just need to get through this meeting. Andrew's right, I said. After this, we can all take a little break, enjoy our success. Hell, I'm going to take a week in Cancun. Then we'll come back and go live. Gabe says we'll IPO in July. July? Said Andrew. How? We haven't even seen the engine beyond that prototype he demoed for us in November. Gabriel always comes through. I just needed them to keep their shit together for a few more hours. 2 years ago, you were living with your parents. Now you've got a condo on the beach, a Porsche, and a hot girlfriend. What are you even complaining about? I'm not complaining, said Andrew. It's just that it doesn't seem real yet. It's real, all right, because we've been working our asses off to make it real. The office phone rang. Everyone turned to look. It rang again. I don't want to answer it, said Jerry. Rent here is weeks overdue. The phone rang again. Oh, for fuck's sake. I grabbed the handset out of the charger. Good morning. Inspirion.com. This is Kelly. How can I help you? Hi, Kelly. I immediately recognized the voice. Janet from Vista Del Mar, where we'd had our all-hands meeting. We still owed them something like 36 grand. I hit the receiver button with my thumb. I'm sorry, I said to the dial tone. Gabriel's not in yet. Can I have him call you back? I paused. Yes, we are always open to new investors. Pause. Let me write that down. Grabbing a while you were out post-it from the table, I jotted down the first number that I could remember, my therapist's. When I replaced the handset, the phone rang again immediately. I unplugged it from the line. No distractions. Let's get ready. Ivan, the marketing guy, walked in. Where's Gabe? It's 8:12. They'll be here at 9. This is bullshit, said Jerry. I'm not working through another pay cycle on promises. Why do I always fall for his shit? Because, I said, it isn't shit. Listen, we've all worked so hard for this, all of us. Gabriel more than anyone, and we're so close. These VCs are going to love what we're doing. How couldn't they? You just need to have faith. Jerry rolled his eyes. Just then my BlackBerry buzzed at last. Meet me at the coffee shop. And my heart started beating again. I wanted to kill him. There would be time for that later. It's him. He's at Melbo's getting coffee for everyone. Tell me what you want. I'll meet him there to help him carry it. I took their orders and left everyone with a job. Ivan, make sure the conference room is clean. Set some water bottles out on the table. Andrew, get the marketing packets ready to go. I reworked the white papers last night. And Jerry, go get some rest in the office. In fact, why don't you just stay in there until these guys are gone? You look like shit, sweetheart. I took side streets to Melbo's to avoid construction, enjoying the quiet time alone. This was it. I would get Gabe back to the office. He would wow the VCs like he does everyone. It was all going to be okay. I took a deep breath, checked my lipstick in my rearview mirror, and turned the corner. There in front of Melbo's, Gabe's brand new blue Lotus was plowed into a telephone pole. Rubbernecking as I drove by, the car was totaled. Steam drifted over the wreckage. Shattered glass sparkled across the road and over the sidewalk. 3 cop cars and a fire engine were parked in the street, lights flashing, and a small crowd of onlookers had gathered, but nobody seemed particularly in a rush. I pulled around the emergency crew and into the lot next to the coffee shop. Approaching the closest officer, who was writing in a small black notebook. Excuse me, sir, what happened? He nodded towards the wreckage. Somebody crashed into the pole. I choked back my smart-ass comeback. Was anyone hurt? He shrugged. Nobody saw it happen, and the driver disappeared. Disappeared? What do you mean? Listen, ma'am, I really can't say, unless you know something. No, just curious and hoping everyone is all right. Another officer was on the radio. Late model Lotus Roadster, blue plate number. I needed to find Gabe and get him to the meeting. We could sort the rest out later. The bell rang as I entered the coffee shop. Jeff was working the counter. Jeff dealt drugs out of the toilet tank. Gabe was one of his regulars. Hi, Kelly. Where's Gabe? He went into the bathroom as soon as he got here. Haven't seen him since. Is he hurt? Seemed fine. I didn't even notice what happened till I heard the sirens. Can I get you something? I thought about the list of drinks I had for the guys at the office and decided there was no time. No, thanks. I turned to go find Gabe. Kelly? I stopped. Gabe owes me $300. He said you'd have it. I set my purse on the counter and digging around came up with 2 20s and some change. I handed the bills over. I'll bring you the rest this afternoon. Okay, said Jeff, pocketing the cash. He didn't sound like it was okay. Thanks for not ratting him out, I said. We have a big meeting this morning. Oh, I lost my Zoom. All right. Okay. Well, thank you. And I would like to introduce our next reader, Hani Khalil. And Hani lives in Brooklyn, where he teaches online level 1 intro to fiction. His literary and critical work have been published in Culturebot, Baraza, Muftah, Arab Stages, Epiphany, and Anomaly. Outside of Writer's Studio, he is chair of the New York Public Radio Community Advisory Board and has served as a voter protection volunteer and polling place monitor for the New Georgia Project in every election since 2020. He'll be heading back down there this November. All right, take it away, Hani.
Thank you so much, Betsy. What a wonderful piece. So this piece is a kind of expanded journaling. It grows out of travel notes I took while visiting family in Egypt last December against the backdrop of the war in Gaza. And it's in many ways a continuation of a narrator I last worked with in masterclass, which was inspired by Ralph Ellison's Invisible Man, and which I'd used back then to explore my first forays into democracy work in Georgia. I've tried training that narrator here on the here and now in the hopes of connecting with what's angering and draining for me about the here and now, and what keeps me going, and why I still do that work. Its working title is borrowed from my Instagram handle, as well as my favorite piece of photographic art, and its subject matter, with whom I've long felt a spiritual kinship. This is Exhausted Renegade Elephant. Lately, it's come to feel as though I'm dangling from the precipice of my own expectations, both of myself and of the world. Dangling not in the manner of the mountain climber, hands grasping for a steady hold, nor of the condemned prisoner writhing on the gallows by the neck. No, I mean dangling in the sense of something excruciatingly slow and inevitable. Dangling in the sense of the second shoe waiting to drop, where here I am that shoe, here I am its ever-fraying canvas lace. And the tragedy isn't in the fall, in the dash against the rocks, or in the blunt force and the bleed out that follows. No, the tragedy here is in my hands themselves. My hands, you see, weren't meant for dangling. My hands are weak and they burn. They simply weren't made to survive you. They could never so much as throw a punch. A friend stops me on the street to ask me if I hate them now, says the attacks have fucked her up, and the polite and honest reply is to say, no, of course I don't. But I understand that in this moment, among the Pledge Drive canvas totes and fading coexist bumper stickers of Brownstone, Brooklyn, she is searching not for reassurance, but for permission. Permission to be fucked up. Permission to be fucked up about me. As though I'm holder of some worldwide, irrevocable, royalty-free, non-exclusive license to fucked upness, for use in times of collective trauma and torment, together with all rights and immunities derived therefrom, as though I've ever had that luxury myself, as though you'd ever let me, as though I'd even know how to ask you for it. Lately, I've come to think of parts of my life as a form of captivity and other parts of it as a kind of permanent transience. Captivity in the manner of a caged elephant and not a hostage, to be observed, applauded, projected upon before moving on. And transient in the manner of the migrant homeless, had they zero deductibles and a mortgage they refinanced at the bottom of the market. And within this transience, I'm without meaning, beneath explanation, rootless, the stuff of travel bans and selective screenings, the explanations I have to tee up at every border crossing, the passport agent in Cairo, who wants to know where my papers are, when he's holding them in his hands with the answer he says he's looking for, but which exists beyond his imagining. Place of birth, Texas, USA. A very ordinary and uninteresting story, seemingly nobody ever has it in them to believe. And in these moments, my freedom of movement validated with a rubber stamp and a grumble, as if to say, people like you were never supposed to happen. I understand that the point isn't to identify me as a threat, so much as to make me uncomfortable with being American, to remind me that my protections are conditional, that I can be disappeared with one false move or even none at all, to put up all that is beautiful and complicated and, oh yes, fucked up about me, against all that is hard, mean, and desperate about the world, just to see who blinks first. And so every visit to Egypt begins in this way, braced, suspended in a kind of anticipatory grief. Grief not in the sense of a world lost because it was never mine to lose, but in the sense of something that was sacrificed simply to continue living by the terms you have laid out for me. And I'll couch that grief at every step of the journey on airport steak and middle shelf scotch on 3, sometimes 4 bottles of economy class red, decent on Air France, replacement grade on British, eyes stuck on cockpit view the whole way, half cocked on Cabernet, tracking every dip in altitude, every shift in wind knot and airspeed, because to die on this journey is neither poignant nor tragic. It is, in fact, the very dumbest thing I could ever imagine happening to me. Dumb in the sense of this could have all been avoided. My whole life clenched in the interstices of an ocean and a sea and the choppy air between the two, safe only in the narcotizing illusion of everything remaining the same. And as I clear the Alps, the Dalmatian coast, the Aegeans, the faintest specter of catastrophe along the eastern Mediterranean, as I begin the long, tranquil descent over a dark, indifferent delta, strewn haphazardly in unfinished housing and unlit highways that have killed no fewer than 3 family members, for no other reason but that headlights are expensive down there, and the people mostly very poor and very careless, and the degree of difference between myself and any of them is an accident of timing, circumstance, a mid-century blip of upward mobility. As I touch down on long runways built for American bombers, as I catch the first whiff of unwashed desert air, at once putrid and savory, as I bribe my way through a grasping phalanx of baggage handlers and bathroom attendants, I begin to understand Egypt's true cost, to pretend I never happened for a couple of weeks, to pretend that for the time being, I am but the forgotten refuse of civilization, a body mislocated in empire, nothing more than a worst-case scenario. I lose 3 whole days making that crossing, sleep through morning bells at 7 a.m. and 4 calls to prayer, sleep through the collective bark of competing packs of strays, the death throes of street cats, the trash collectors' cries of rubabekia, a word we stole from the Turks, who stole it in turn from the Italians, perhaps because it sounded classier, perhaps because our own garbage was too commonplace, too everywhere to be aspirational. Sleep through the omnipresent drone of 20 million souls pushing past, honking at, talking over one another in perpetuity, surviving this life without reward across millennia. I am not so naive as to say these are my people, but this is where I come from, the clamoring pileup of 8,000 years of decomposition and the lives we built atop it because there is no place else to live unless you got out. These days, all I can think about is the getting out. Lately, I've been run roughshod by certainty. Perhaps you feel the same way. If I were to take many of you at face value, I'm either a moral coward or I objectively wish you and your family dead. Both are conflations I can do without, both rely on complicities I've struggled against my entire life. This is not to cast a pox on both houses. I know exactly where I have to reside. It's never been any place I've dwelled easefully. I don't dwell anywhere easefully. Maybe you feel the same way too. Not here with everything that makes me, with everything I've fought for with all of you, because I have fought for all of you, for all that is beloved about you, contradictory and maddening about you, the way you let me trouble you, be unrelatable with you, if only for so long as you need, because the very worst thing you can be in America is unrelatable. Or there, with everything I come from and all the ways I am marked by it, all the ways that can trace the centuries along my face, dance across every vowel of my name without unforced error or prevarication, the way I know you have it in you to one day do yourself, where I am unintelligible without meaning the moment I open my mouth, when to have no meaning is to exist outside of language, when to exist outside of language is to exist beyond anyone's imagining, and when you're beyond anyone's imagining, nobody knows what to do with you, and when nobody knows what to do with you is when they can do anything to you. I know this basic fact of my existence better than I know my own face, the one you always tell me you can't read. And I know that complicity will always follow me wherever I find myself. It will make me its captive without so much as casting a net. Maybe this is all I've ever truly known. And I think about everyone I know in this moment to be free, live wires of possibility and rage, all terrified and exhausted and fucked up, feverish chroniclers of every missing person and every flattened body, whatever their provenance and whatever their creed, between yes, that river, and yes, that sea. And I begin to wonder if maybe freedom isn't the absence of fear, but its overabundance, in the way that one can have an overabundance of dopamine and go mad, an overabundance of cherry tomatoes and make a red sauce. And maybe the captive among us are overabundant of nothing. Maybe all we are accorded is the opportunity to continue in whatever state you've placed us in. And we are to apprehend this as a form of grace, as unearned favor, as the natural order of things, even for some as a kind of mercy, as divine justice, as owed retribution, as simply getting what's yours. And the only way we survive this, the only way we survive you, is to do the work for you, in spite of you, to center you, your weird surmisals, your lazy shorthands, your cherished blind spots, and to absent ourselves from our own annihilation. This is, at least as I understand it, exactly what the world wants of me. And I expect no end to it in my lifetime, or even for that matter, yours. I only expect it to get unimaginably worse, for it to become more insidious, more effortless, more sanctified, and yes, even more joyful in its cruelty. And when it does, I'll be where I always have, grappling for something that was probably never mine to hold, dangling tragically off that precipice. Tragic as the Greeks probably meant it, as hamartia and peripateo, what's innate and what's damnable, what's foreseen and what's futile. So in that, no matter if I fall or if I remain, my tragedy, in the end, will read thus: the fates having washed their hands of him, the furies dissolved of resilience and rage, somewhere far out beyond earshot of chorus or catharsis, where you can't kill a man born to hang. Thank you. It is now my distinct pleasure to introduce Gail Ford, who is the director of the San Francisco School. Gail is a poet, essayist, and graduate of Stanford University. She became the director of the Writers Studio San Francisco in late 2019. She teaches poetry, fiction, essays, art speaks to art, and CD writes hybrid writing. Gail loves thinking, talking, and laughing with writers about writing, and welcomes all to try this, try that, as a playful means to both deepen access to our material and engage the reader. Gail, the room is yours.
Thank you. You guys are great readers. Thank you so much. I'm enjoying every bit. And I'm going to start with thank yous. Thank you, Phil and Monica, for this wonderful school. Thank you for everybody who's ever taught craft class, because I've been there and learned. Thank you for everyone who's commented in craft class, because I've learned. Thank you to my fellow San Francisco teachers. And thank you to all my students, because it's a life worth living. Okay, so I have 4 poems. Okay. 4 years. I thought I knew, but didn't know. A present future arc to lead his life from home to living on his own. And then there was the knife. I thought the therapy, the special schools, the testing. And then there was the blood. I thought a job, but then someone yelled and he couldn't get out of the car, he said, without throwing up. And then there was the heroin. He asked for what I do not think will help and refuses what I think will get us back on track. Then I wonder, whose track? Will there ever be a path? On Monday, he will go to residential rehab. At least I hope he'll go, even though a new cut on his forehead and the swelling down his cheek will not have completely healed. How to go when always over, then there is the shame, there is the guilt, there is the grief, the impossibility to know what's best, yet having still to act. So, like a seamstress, sew. Stitch in patience. Brew some tea and hold the broken, mended, empty cup until it's time to finally fully break has come. Okay. Poem 2, Origami. A flat piece of paper, an image, a maybe in the mind. Fingers lift and fold, smooth and press vision and real together. making beautiful, true, and new. Everything I see, everything I hear, everything I notice, everything I suppress, every pulse of blood, every dendrite spark, every tiny quark, every black hole constellation, every wormhole fantasy, each and every shifting, a jostling, a changing, a glorious totality tingling, here, right here, in fingertips, the crow's caw, the hummingbird's wing, the moon eclipsing the sun. Poem 3. Packing my bags. The big one or the small? The steamer trunk or the backpack? I'll have to think on it. And what about money? Does anyone ever use traveler's checks anymore? Or only RFD credit cards or wallets on cell phones? In what currency? At what rate of exchange? Passport? Where's my passport, I wonder, as I glance out the window to see there in the street below, Mom and Dad, Nana and Blanche, Sharon and Jerry, Frank and Jolynn, Andrea and Miriam, and maybe now, maybe soon, is that Tessa? And around their ankles, stirring and purring, Ming and Parika, IQ, Topaz and Bilbo, 4 goats, 2 geese, Mike and John, and Big Doggy Bogart. My passports, past ports, waving and whiskering, tail waggings, and happy, glad landings. But not quite yet, I smile at them down there on the sidewalk. Just a bit more time to gather, integrate, cook, investigate, find, detect, collect all these fragments of heart, of mind, of memory, of dreams, or maybe, and mostly, to see the overall stream that started before me, protected and projected and lived and still lives through me. These small bits of wisdom and, oh yes, all the touchable, tangible love I can give and all I can possibly wrangle. And here's the last one. I love women's and men's wrinkled faces. The laugh lines at the corners of eyes, yes. The frown lines between brows, yes. The parentheses around the mouth, yes. But even more, the subtle softnesses. The skin relaxed into small yet exquisite drapings, saying, I have eaten, I have seen, I have loved, I have lost. Minute to minute, dressed, expressed in animation and in rest, these, your beautiful faces. Thank you.
Oh, Gail, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. All of you, thank you so much. I am dropping into the chat the full URL for the school, which is www.writerstudio.com. Thank you to Lucinda for reminding us that there's a single S there. So you can follow that. The chats are coming in sort of fast and furious, so I'm going to give that just a second to catch up. And then with our panelists' permission, I'm going to bring us all into view. And hello, I think we're all there. Just be sure that we are. I think we are. Yeah, I think we are. And ask you all to unmute yourselves so that we can applaud you. You can applaud each other on behalf of our attendees. Wonderful, wonderful work. Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you all for being here. Thank you, Linda. Thank you, Amy. Thank you, Betsy. Thank you, Honey. Thank you, Gail. Thank you, Doug. And thank you, as always, to our fearless leader, Philip Schultz, for bringing us all to this beautiful school. We're so grateful to be here.
Thank you, Francesca, for pulling this together for all of us.
Course.
Yes,
Thank
thank
you,
you so
Francesca.
much. Such a beautiful reading, so deeply, profoundly moving. I'm so proud of all of you.
Yeah. It's a beautiful method, and beautiful work came out this evening. Thank you all. We're going to just hang out here just a few more minutes so you all can read your comments that are coming in. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for taking time out of your Sunday to join us and listen in. So happy to see you all. I wish you a wonderful Sunday, everyone. Keep writing.
Thank you, Francesca. Thank you.
Of course.
Thank you so
of
much,
course.
everyone.
Thanks,
Thank
everybody.
you.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Good night.